What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about a couple of fantastic games I have down in front of me, and that is the Wing Leader series by GMT. I have Victories and Supremacy down there, all set up. Not set up for any specific scenario, but I have every single counter in both games laid out on the maps there. And I wanted to talk about the differences between the two games, but more importantly, why I think you should own both. We'll get back to this in just a second. However, if you're anything like me, you daydreamed when you were a kid about being a pilot in World War II, about flying a Mustang or a Lightning or whatnot. Shoot, today, I gotta admit, even today, if I'm stuck in traffic, I'm probably thinking about being in a Corsair. I love World War II air combat. It's one of my biggest passions of wartime history. And I grew up. It's one of my uncle introduced me to wargaming with air combat in World War II. And I grew up making boot discs so I could run a air combat game on my 286 PC, and I still got a lot of those games, a lot of the newer games too. I do play IL-2 and a whole bunch of other stuff. But anyway, I got several different hex and counter games for World War II air combat. Got all the Leader series and Corsair Leader, Down in Flames, whole bunch of stuff. And I got a couple miniature games as well. I got about 400 or 500 miniature aircraft for those war games as well. So we get down on air combat here at Epic Fox. But anyway, back to Wing Leader. This game really was the reason I started this channel, and that's because I just enjoy it so much, and so does my circle as well. Like I said, have played many scenarios, probably up in 30 scenario range. We've done it one on one, two on one, two on two. We've done it all sorts of different ways. It's very enjoyable, and with the Victories, this is when it comes to wargaming, it's a newer game, although it's been out for a couple years now. And as you can see here, it has, a good amount of aircraft and some ground counters down there in the lower left on a whole bunch of different miscellaneous tracker counters and stuff like that. It does cover the early half of the war from 1940 to 1942, and the scenarios inside the playbook reflect those time frames. So there is a lot of scenarios included in this game, and it is action packed. However, you do need Supremacy as well. You don't need it. They're both standalone games. You can play either one of them by themselves. But in my opinion, and pretty much anybody that I know who plays this game, their opinion would be the same, which is you need both of them. They're just fantastic. I truly consider them one single game. I do look at it like that. So you can see down here, we will take a little bit closer look at some of the ground counters we got here, and we have supply depots, troops, troop transports, bunkers, flak guns, destroyers, battleships, carriers, light carriers, cruisers, a whole bunch of stuff down there. And then we have up here, we have a minor to access faction. We got some Italian aircraft right there, and some more Italian aircraft right there. And then we have a little bit of, I think these are the Russians. Yeah, those are the Russians there. And so they include a lot of the Germans and Japanese of the early war here. So over here on the right, we have the Victories game. And we'll go ahead and just take a look at some of the counters I have laid out. We already took a look at some of the aircraft here, but here is the unit IDs. You can see you have blue and yellow ID markers, and you have the unalerted, the alerted, the vector trackers, the ID numbers, all sorts of stuff. So, and then you have some good looking straggler and loss counters there for your wing board. And you place those counters on your separate squadrons to track your losses and such. You have more aircraft, the Germans, Japanese, etc. We went over those a little bit. And the British, the Spitfires, the Hurricanes, Boston Bombers, whole bunch of stuff. More German FW-190s right there in the middle. There's some bomb counters, some bomb load, ammo depleted, ammo low, rockets depleted, rocket pods, gun pods, all that good stuff. And then you have the American aircraft right here. And you have a wide mix of different versions of the P-40 Warhawks, the TBD Devastators, TBF Avengers, SBD Dauntless, F4F Wildcats, whole bunch of stuff. You got a couple flak markers and some balloon markers there, and your speed and your climb markers, and you got some more of them up here. I did not, I wasn't really impressed with these dice that were included with this game, the blue and the red. They're kind of a tie-dye look. I wasn't too impressed with them. Could have done with a normal pair of dice. And then you got some experience counters. You got veteran and green. Whatever squadrons do not include those in their profile would be considered normal trained status. Then you have the wing leaders, expert day markers, and the expert day wing leader markers as well. And then you got some miscellaneous cloud cover counters right here. And these counters are just beautiful. I enjoy the cloud cover and all the other counters. I really was impressed with the quality of counters that they did in this game. And you have a haze tracker, a contrail marker, and those marks, let's say if that was in the haze would normally be much lower altitude than 13, but if it was at 1 or 2 would be all stretched all the way across the board at that level. The entire altitude at 2 would have haze in it or below her. And contrail, same thing. Contrail altitude starts off at 15 or above, so any planes flying at 15 or above would be leaving contrails on that day. You do have a sun counter right there, and that's in the middle of the sun count, the tracker that shows the angle of the sun for the day, and that lets you set up good attack angles and stuff like that using out of the sun techniques. And it's a rather in-depth game. It's done in a simplified manner. It goes very smoothly. Has a tally and a tracking system, and pilots move accordingly to that. There's other players who have done a couple different rules reviews and rules explanations on this game. And also, I plan on doing several battle reports and scenario reports on this game in the very, very near future. So I'm not going to take the time to do a rules explanation. There are a little bit of differences between the two games, but for the most part, they're the same game. Mainly the difference between the rule sets is just the basically the era of warfare changing from early war to late war techniques like the Japanese kamikazes. In victories, you can use suicide attacks, but only with damaged aircraft. And in some scenarios, you're allowed toko, which are the kamikaze attacks, but they're not as extensive as they are in Supremacy, which is when the Japanese became very desperate, and you can actually do a lot of type of kamikaze attacks. And or if you're playing the allies or US, you're basically on picket duty. There's some outstanding destroyer scenarios in Supremacy that reflect just the destroyer against kamikaze battles that took place in the late war. Fantastic stuff. Very, very impressed with the detail of this game and all the content that is included in both of these games. You can pick up both of them for probably just a little bit over $100. And that's not really bad when you consider all that you're getting. You're getting probably between the two close to, my guess would be 80 scenarios somewhere in there, if not more. And a lot of history, a lot of detail, a lot of reading in those books as well. Some good stuff. I, I have to advocate this game just for the content and value alone, let alone the gameplay. Over here we have the Supremacy set, and if we take a closer look, you can see here the same sort of ID counters. You have green and red ID counters in this game, which I think mixes very, very well with the Supremacy counters, or excuse me, the victory counters over here, the yellow and blue ones, because, like I said, in my circle, we've played some big multiplayer games here, and we've even doubled up the forces in the scenarios using more than one box set. And it makes it easier if you got 4 players, if you can all have different colored ID markers. And that's what we use all 4 colors for, is different players. and it really helps out a lot, and it's a lot of fun, So hopefully I'll be able to put one of those big multiplayer games up on Epic Fox here pretty soon. But you can also see there's just a lot more aircraft when it comes to Supremacy. Uh, just, there's probably a squadron of aircraft for every square on the map. So, and that's another difference between the two games. If you can see, you have a paper map on the right for Victories, and Supremacy, they went all out and they did this mounted map, which I enjoy much, much, much more. We play all of our games on these mounted maps right here. So they work out a lot better. They're just so much better quality than my opinion. Some players may prefer the paper maps. I really don't because you don't have to carry around a sheet of plastic with you, a hard sheet of plastic with you. So yeah, I just think the quality of the mounted maps are much, much better. So other than that, it's pretty much all the same counters. If you get both games, you're going to double up on all the counters, which makes it much easier for multiplayer games or bigger battles, bigger scenarios, because you're not going to run out of counters or have to cycle counters as much. You can see down here we are going to have a lot more aircraft. You're going to get a whole lot of Mustangs, P-51Bs, P-51Ds, and a whole lot more ground counters here. You can see even the carriers are going to have different stats, like these CVs right here. One of them is 14 victory points, the other's 12. They got different combat stats as well. There's light carriers, battleships, all sorts of stuff in there again. Bunkers, bridges, ports, cool, nice looking targets. You got some other aircraft down here, the P-47 Thunderbolts, P-38 Lightnings, and what are these? Let's get the focus in there. We're going to have a bunch of P-40 Warhawks scattered across here, B-17 bombers, B-24 bombers, B-25 bombers, B-26 bombers, and then we're going to go over to the British Commonwealth with Spitfires, a whole bunch of bombers, Russians, more Russians, than Victories over here. So this is when the East Front really, really kicks in this game is in Supremacy. So it's good stuff. And you do have a little access miner. You got some Romanians here, so that's good stuff. And then you got some more Japanese. And the Japanese this time, they're going to add in all their new late era fires, which is the Judy, the Tony, Frank, Jill, George, Jack, Peggy, the later Zeros, the later Oscars, stuff like that. So you really get a lot of in depth there. So there's the order counters, the escort sweep, stuff like that. Um, well, I hope that gives you a good, look at the difference between the two games. And like I said, to me, these two games right here, I look at them as one game. And right now, for me, Wing Leader is the premier air combat series. If I'm not playing a flight simulator on the PC, which in that case, it's IL Skirmovik, Battle of Moscow, so Battle of Stalingrad, I mean. But yeah, these are them right here, and I hope you come back for some battle reports because we're going to have some big scenarios going through all sorts of different theaters of war. I'll see you guys later.